All right, my name is Michael Wilczynski. I'm a certified professional geologist. I retired from the DEQ, which is now Eagle, in 2015 after 12 years as a senior geologist. Prior to that, I worked pretty much in the oil and mining industries, both in exploration and in environmental. I have bachelor's and a master's degree in geology and postgraduate work in hydrogeology. And I do volunteer work now, and I got tied up with Stacy and about the Holly dump. And what I'd like to do today is explain the Part 201 process, which is what the dump is under, explain where the dump is in that process, what needs to be done. I'm also going to talk about the geology and the hydrogeology, which determines where the contaminants are going to migrate to or where they're going to head to from the dump. Anything present there is going to follow the groundwater flow. So I'm going to talk about that. And I'm also going to present what has to be done in the short term and also long term. Short term being within the next several months, long term starting after that, spreading out several years probably. It's going to be a little different today because I had slides, but they're not going to work. And I had handouts, but just didn't get printed in time. So we're going to have to wing it. I'm going to be drawing some strange figures on the board and explaining what they are. But the handout, I'll make sure everybody can get an electronic copy. It'll have all the figures. They're pretty much, after you listen to what I'm talking about and you pay attention here and you see the handout, it'll be pretty clear. And I answer emails all the time. So I'll leave my card out here where you can contact me as well. All right, around here, the area around Holly, the surface geology is composed of glacial material. The highest areas here, those higher ridges, those are called end moraines or recessional moraines, and those are formed when the glacial ice sits there for a long time and drops a lot of material in front of it, because as the ice is melting, more ice is coming in behind it like a conveyor belt due to gravity. And so you get these high ridges piled up. And then in the glaciers, the climate changes a bit, the glacier retreats. It's going to leave a trail of this material and then build up another ridge. So that's kind of what is on the surface here, along with what we call, that material is called glacial till. It has a lot of clay in it. It's generally fairly impermeable. Groundwater doesn't really flow through it that much, okay? There's a lot of gravel associated with them on the edges, but for the most part, these are clay-rich sediments, and they prevent groundwater from flowing, unless there's sand seams in them that interconnect. That's called till. On top of that is called glacial outwash or stratified drift. And this is material that over the years and years, 10,000 years ago since the glaciers retreated, all the running water and all the meltwater from the glaciers, as they're standing there, fills the lower spots in with this material. And because water moved it, the more coarse material stays near the moraine, or the end moraine, and the finer gets pushed further away, so you have this gradation. And in this material, because it's sorted, all the fine material gets pushed away, leaving nice sand and gravel present, which makes good aquifer material. And it's within these sand and gravel deposits of this glacial outwash is where we have the lakes and the wetlands. It's also the source of the aquifers, source of groundwater in the aquifers. So you have the till, then on top of that, and in lower areas, you have glacial outwash. And beneath that, you have bedrock. And the mobile home park wells are in bedrock. They're in what's called the cold water shale, which generally has fairly poor quality water overall. The Holly wells are in the Marshall sandstone, which is a much better aquifer. We'll get more into that when we talk about wellhead protection zones. I think everybody knows where the dump is at, right? I don't have to draw a map there. I'll leave my figures out here too when I'm done talking if you want to take a look through them. Let's talk first about aquifers before we get going. Everyone knows what an aquifer is. That's where your wells are. There's a lot of wells here, private wells. There are two types of aquifers. Here's the ground surface. Doing a cross section, we're kind of like cutting a slice into the earth right now. So, put a house over there. I'm not the best artist. And then this is all, say, sand and gravel here. So here we have sand, material that's permeable, okay? And it's going to flow water very easily. And then here we have a layer of clay-rich material, which is not going to allow water to flow. So when we get rainfall, this percolates down and forms a layer of water on top of this clay. And because it's open to the surface here and can get direct recharge, it's called an unconfined aquifer. You'll notice because it's open to the surface, they're generally shallow. They're not well protected from contaminants from the surface. Most wells, they try to get under a clay layer. Now here's this clay layer. Well, under here you're going to get water because you're going to get maybe another clay layer here, and then here you're going to have sand again. Only in here, this entire, instead of having a water table here, this is all water, and this is air up in here, you're going to have this entire sand unit or gravel unit full of water. And it's going to be under pressure. So if you were to puncture it, the water level is going to rise higher than the clay layer. And in some cases, it'll flow to the surface. Okay? So this is called a confined aquifer. These are the two types of aquifers. Most of the wells here are in confined aquifers. All right? They're more protected. However, there is a point where this clay layer is going to disappear and they're going to interconnect. And that's called a recharge zone for the aquifer, where it can be recharged with water from the surface at some point. So confined aquifers do eventually connect to the surface water, just like the unconfined aquifer. To get an idea on where the water level is, if you're at the shore of a pond or a lake, and you were to come back a couple feet and put a boring in there, you would hit groundwater just about the level of that lake or pond, all right? The surface water is nothing more than an expression of the groundwater in most cases. Sure. I'm sorry? Perched water table?
And the unconfined, is that the same thing?
No, a perched, let me draw a perched, I'll draw a perched water table for you. Okay, a perched water table was the question. Is it the same as an unconfined aquifer? There we go. There's the surface. Okay. I'm going to try to make this small so I don't have to keep erasing. And you have a water table here. Okay. This is all water in here. And this is all sand. Okay. So this is an unconfined aquifer. But what happens with a perched aquifer, you have a clay layer coming out like this. So this is clay here. So any water falling down, coming in from rainfall, this goes to the main water table. This one goes to the perched aquifer. So it's formed when you have an impermeable layer within the sand, and water gets trapped on it above the main aquifer. Okay? But it is an unconfined aquifer, just a special type of one. Okay? And they're common in this kind of environment where you get a lot of outwash. So are confined aquifers. The site, the dump, is right on the edge of one of these moraines. So this is till, okay? This is the rather impermeable material that was dumped by the glacier, and it wasn't sorted by water, so it's not going to be very permeable. Groundwater is not going to flow through it as readily as through outwash. So this is a map looking down now. So this is the dump right in here, more or less. And then here's this till, and then all through here we get this glacial outwash. And that's where the contaminants are going to migrate through. They're going to prefer that glacial outwash. One of the things that Eagle has been working under is the assumption that the groundwater flows to the northwest. I don't think so. Initially from the dump it may be, but if you go to the north, there's another till layer, another till up in here that blocks it from going to the northwest. And it's going to tend to go more west or southwest from the dump. And I believe Eagle has been concentrating residential wells up in here more. And there are some down here near on the bottom of Rice Lake that really should be looked at. So that's, without the figures, that's about the best I can do, but think of it, you know. What's that? Yeah, I don't know if you can see this. Let me walk through here. The pink is the outwash here. All of the green material is till, okay, of some kind. The dark green is the ridges, the higher one, the bigger deposits of till, and the other green is just different grain sizes. So anyway, here's the dump, this little dot right here on the edge of the till. So to the northwest, it's going to encounter resistance here. And I started looking just briefly at the surface elevations. They tend to be higher here than here. So to me, that means the water is going to start to flow down through here towards Holly from the dump, not to the northwest. And there's even a more detailed geologic map that was prepared by a college friend of mine who just passed away a couple of weeks ago, John Wilczynski. And it has other channels present. Oakland County mapped the entire county in fairly good detail. And John worked for Cranbrook. In this one, the dark brown, you can't see it, but this dark brown here is the outwash. Here's the Holly dump right here. There's some channels going down to the south also that may intercept the plume. And so we really don't know. I mean, this is a preliminary assessment. This is what should have been done 25 years ago and was never done, okay? So that leads to what that we have right now. In the 201 process, it is the responsibility of the responsible party to submit actions to Eagle for review. Right now, nothing's really been officially submitted. I saw a draft report with the PFAS concentrations, and that's it. I didn't see any map of where the wells were, and there's some confusion apparently in the field which wells were what numbers. It would be helpful to have a map on which numbers they thought they were sampling and compare them to what the other data is, so we're looking at the same wells. So it's the Village of Holly's responsibility to contract consultants who do the work. Eagle reviews it, okay, and approves it. At this point, the report is nothing more than here's the chemical results, no interpretation. There's no groundwater flow direction at all. They collected water levels when they sampled the wells. You have to do it in order to determine how much to purge. And so we don't know even where the groundwater flow direction is on the dump itself. And the data's there, it has never been analyzed. There are no cross sections of the dump, of the geology beneath the dump, and how it relates to any water wells. That was never done, okay? There's also concern of the mobile home park well. There's what's called a capture zone for a well. And it's basically the area from which the well is going to draw water. And you can develop a wellhead protection zone based on that. And it says within this area, we're going to be careful what we do in here because it's going to go to our wells eventually. Looks to me, a preliminary review of both the wellhead protection zone for the Holly wells and for the mobile home park are wrong. They're based on a groundwater flow to the northwest. And these wells are in the bedrock. I don't think there's enough data to get the groundwater flow in the bedrock yet. Also, the shape of the wellhead protection zone is not what you would expect from a confined aquifer. I think they use the equations for an unconfined aquifer determining it. I've seen this happen before. It's fairly common. So they're close enough that even the way they are, with the assumptions put into it, those wellhead protection zones, the one from Holly could intercept the plume of contaminated water eventually, okay? The mobile home park wells are further up gradient. They're not going to be directly impacted except if they pull contaminated water to them. Under Part 201, there's criteria you can't exceed that are based on health. There's also a clause in there that you can't exacerbate contamination. And that means affect it in any way, make it worse. All right? The mobile home park wells are pumping, I'm not sure how much, several hundred gallons a minute. I'm not sure what the current flow is. But it was tested at several hundred gallons a minute. I think, was it 1,200? It was a fairly high flow. But anyway, that kind of flow is going to give a big capture zone. It could be impacting the groundwater flow direction coming from the dump. All right? I don't think it would necessarily pull things into it. I don't know, but I can't say that. That's something that needs to be looked at. I've asked Eagle several times to give me the pumping test data for those wells. It had to have a pumping test done to get permitted because it's a community well. Based on the pumping test data, you can do an analysis that'll show how far out the radius of influence is for that well. It can also show if there's a hydraulic connection between that aquifer and the unconfined aquifer in many cases. They've never provided that. They can't find it. And it would solve a lot of issues. It would solve, at least the question is, what impact is the mobile home park or even the Holly wells having on the plume? And nothing's been done along that line. There's a lot of talk going around in Eagle right now on how to handle this, but I don't think there's any geologists involved in it right now. No one's looking at the geology. I know the project manager at Eagle for the Holly dump, Kim Etheridge. She's a really good person. I worked with her for 11 years. All right, you have a very good project manager. She doesn't roll over to management. She's going to try to do what's right. So don't harass her. Kim's a good person. And I asked her about the geology, and they just don't have any staff. The geologist assigned to this project is too overloaded. It just can't get done. And so Kim actually asked me if I find out anything in the hydrogeology or geology to let her know. So I'm going to be telling her all of this too. I sent her a brief outline of what I found out, and I'm going to be sending her more next week. And so hopefully we can get some action. What needs to be done right now is we need to evaluate the residential wells to the west and south and see which ones should be sampled, the drinking water wells, all right? I'm not sure. I think most of the wells have only been sampled right next to Royce Lake and by Stacy's house. We need to maybe look at some of the other ones and sample those. That has to be done rather quickly. They also need to start looking at the geology of the site, looking at the groundwater flow on the site to determine where additional monitoring wells are needed. That's more longer term. They also need to do a source evaluation. Right now, we have concentrations in the groundwater that are 3 times the criterion. It could be higher. That's why you do a source investigation. You try to find out where it's coming from, and that generally means the soil. So that means some soil drilling, some soil testing, and then additional groundwater testing to see, is that the highest? Does it get higher? At this point, we can't predict, what impact it'll have because we don't know the highest concentration, the geology, or the groundwater flow. That all needs to be determined.
When you say sample those wells, what specifically should they be sampled for?
Typical landfill parameters, VOCs, and PFAS.
And the reason I ask, sir, is I obviously defer to you as an expert, but I attended, I think right before the pandemic hit, a PFAS thing with Alyssa Slotkin in this area. It was very interesting, and they had some Oakland County water officials there, and I learned there that what maybe everybody else here already knows, but they test these wells, I think every well in the county every year, so obviously are you...
Not residential wells.
Well, that wasn't my understanding.
No. Residential wells are not sampled routinely by anyone. No. They're monitoring wells at landfills and at contaminated sites get sampled on a regular basis, some quarterly, some semi-annual, some annual, depending where they're in the process. Yeah, what's that?
Public drinking wells.
Yeah, public wells, like the community well, the Holly, and that, they have to be tested, yeah, but not private wells. Yeah, there's like class 1, 2, and 3 wells. 1 and 2 are community and municipal wells. They have to be tested and they're more regulated. Type 3 are the municipal are home wells. So that's about all I want.
They're going to start a program to do.
There?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's what I heard.
And actually, I know it sounds terrible, but you're almost lucky that PFAS showed up at the dump because that's going to move them to do more.
Yeah.
That's why I say if they find it at these other dumps, that will move them to hold up entire community to a program.
Yeah, there's a separate group in Eagle that deals with PFAS sites. And you're dealing with a higher, more experienced people in that group, generally. And that's about all I wanted to talk about right now. We're just at a point where I think the village, myself, I think they're dragging their feet. I mean, all they've done to date is submit the sample results that were, when was that sample? Several months ago. Like, why don't we have a groundwater flow map? It's not the consultant's fault. The consultant only does what the client directs. So it's the village, yeah.
Told by Jerry Walker's village manager was that the sampling so far has cost between $25,000 and $50,000. That all of the findings, the raw findings, had to go to Eagle to be audited, and then they would be released back to the village.
No, that's a bunch of bull crap. I know, you're getting a runaround. You are. Yeah, the way it's done, no, he's not, I appreciate that, because I've heard other things from the village too that are concerning. How much did you say it cost?
It's right now between $25,000 and $50,000 for the work that has been done. I don't.
You're kidding. Oh, I wish I got that contract.
Well, that's the scary part. You know, it's okay, $25,000, that's not a sidewalk, that's not an improvement to the street. So how long does this go on? And Holly Village can't bear it any more than Owasso or Ascona or anybody else. The state has got to step up and help clean up these messes.
Yep.
We just sit up and everybody looks and laughs at the village, but we don't have any money laying around. If we did, we'd lower your water bill.
The state doesn't either. Their bond fund went broke years ago for environmental work. They're barely squeaking by. That's why they have no staff. When I retired, we were understaffed, and it's even getting worse. All the experienced people are gone. You're dealing with people who you know, are very inexperienced in management positions a lot of times.
I'm a state retiree, so you're singing to the choir.
Right, exactly. And they had no mentoring program to bring these people in. You just can't find geologists out there and bring them in. Okay?
If it got to the Flint water crisis, that would have changed, but it didn't apparently, huh?
No. There's still some remnants from the Snyder administration within Eagle about lax enforcement. Yeah.
As far as the next steps, what would you recommend?
The village, I sent an email to Kim also, and Kim Etheridge with Eagle, and I told her that I said the village is dragging their feet. That at this case, at this point, it's going to be years before anything gets done. You know, there's no reason for things to move this slow. The consultant is probably being directed, we don't have any more money, don't do anything. So all they did is they turned in the lab data. If that's $50,000, they got ripped off big time, all right? Because that shouldn't cost that much for 9 wells.
For the record, they
Yeah.
spent $16,000 and change.
Okay, that's reasonable. All right, yeah, that'd be more reasonable for what they did. Yeah.
Well, I guess if I had anything more to say, what if you're going to spend more money on this, I think the village and the township needs to lock arms because it affects township residents as well. And we need to cough up another $15,000 we can pay for consultants to help us through all this.
Well, what'll happen is if
Saw that 300-page report, and I tried, I can't do it, I'm not a hydrogeologist.
neither's anyone in the village and they're running this, that's scary. No, they're not. And that was another comment I made to Kim, is that I don't know who's directing this work at the village, but it's being misdirected.
Sitting inside there, waiting to come out and listen to the discussion about it. I find it amazing that we can't get anybody from the village down here to at least listen to a different point of view. We're leaving it up to a clerk who, by her own admissions and emails, sat there and said, oh, this is all politically motivated. This is, blah, blah, blah. Why do we even need to test it? That's who we have, We have village leadership. Where is it? Where the hell is it?
What's gonna happen is-
It's time to call them out and not be nice about it anymore. You know, oh, we come out, we get one guy comes out, smokes a cigarette, goes back in. He has no clue what's going on here. Absolutely no clue.
Welcome to township government. I see that all over the state. Or village government. What'll happen is if Holly doesn't do anything, and I'm going to keep pushing Eagle will take enforcement action. And they'll issue an order where they get fined if it isn't, and then Eagle will come in and start doing the work and go for cost recovery. So it'll get done. We just need to keep the pressure on Eagle. And I think that's done. I've spoke with Alyssa Slotkin's office early in the week and told her, you know, what I was finding. I sent her the figures that you couldn't get or couldn't show on the slides. I sent them to her, and I said, you know, let's talk about this more next week. So they're involved. People at the top in Eagle are doing what they can with the staff and resources they have. It's a very understaffed, underfunded division. You know, not to defend them all the way. There are a lot of problems in there that are their own, but you know, they only can do so much with what they have. And they're just kind of in a bad position now. Right, exactly. Right now, in the Southeast Michigan district office that you're in, when I worked there, there were geologists there. Not that many. There were more biologists and stuff like that trying to do groundwater work. And there were only two real hydrogeologists in that office, me and my friend Steve Hoyne. I retired 5 years ago. Steve's retiring pretty soon. They're going to be left with no one with a hydrogeology background. They'll have a couple geologists, but that doesn't mean you're a hydrogeologist. This is a combination of hydraulics and fluid flow and geology. It's kind of an engineering field. And a lot of people don't have that background that are in geology. And so they have the wrong people evaluating these a lot of times. And so that's kind of why other reason I want to write herd on this. Kim has some good resources right now within Eagle if they get freed up. All right. I'll let them know that the village is blaming them. Because they've received a draft and that's it. You know, I'm pretty sure they'd like to hear more from the village. And I'll get it straightened out. And if anyone sends me their email to when I leave behind here, I'll make a group thing and I can send out updates if you want to do that. If that works.
I got a question. Is that bulk dump, is that annually tested?
No. It wasn't sampled for 25 years. Until just recently, because Stacy and others brought it to the forefront.
So when it was recently tested, what were the findings? Is that what they're not?
The draft reports in, there's PFAS in 2 of the wells. 1 triple the criterion.
And that's going to continue to have them tested because they...
Not at this point. No. There's been no plans for any further work. It's up to Holly to write the plans and submit. They've been told they need to do an investigation. All right? So it's up to them to submit the report to Eagle with a plan for the next step. They haven't done that. You know, the next step is groundwater flow direction and figure out the geology of the site itself and relate it to the surrounding residential wells.
You have to push for is the testing of the wells to get to Eagle.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm going to mention to Kim, too. After I talk to Kim, the state tests the wells, the Department of Health and Human Services usually. And after I talk to Kim, she'll probably put something in there to get more wells taken care of, I hope.
If they find it in residential wells, it will go to the state. And the state is responsible. If they find PFAS in residential wells, the state will tell them.
Right.
The budgets for DNR and what was called DEQ, now called Eagle, have been cut by 75%. And you can thank your legislature for doing that. That's where the money comes from. And this kind of thing is going on all over the state. Not only the water, but all kinds of scientific issues that are not being taken care of because
Woo!
the biggest expense in anybody's budget is staff. So when you cut the budget by 75%, basically you're cutting the staff by 75%.
Yeah. They're running on just a little bit of general funding right now and money from returned bottles that don't get returned. So when you throw your bottle away, it helps Eagle. You know, because that deposit money goes to fund natural resource programs, unless the legislature is pirating that too. Here's what happened. I'm going to give you a little history of what happened in Eagle besides all the people leaving. During the Snyder administration, we had people come from Lansing and told us on more than one occasion that if we didn't back off on enforcement, we were going to get our funding cut by the legislature. That they were unhappy with us. So they were threatening us essentially with layoffs. And this happened on more than one occasion. And that happened throughout the Snyder administration. And the people that are in management now are holdovers from that mentality of lax enforcement. We had a joke when I worked for the DEQ. Oh, they're not paying attention to us? Well, I guess I need to send the pretty please letter now. Because that's what they wanted us to do, to cajole these people who are violating the law to comply. It doesn't work that way. You know, you have to hit the 696, the green slime. That was blown off. Those letters, the guy didn't respond to any of them. You know, he's still in jail, I guess, for something else. But, you know, that's kind of what's happening. Companies are ignoring the law and local governments because they know there's no repercussions. And that's my editorial part. All right? And everything I said today could be attributed to Pangea Environmental LLC, so I don't get sued. You're welcome.
The township or somebody can get an injunction against the development of the mobile home park at this time.
Yeah, it might be expensive. You know, I don't think you'll get the best you can hope for is, and I've been trying to hit this up with Part 201 is managed by the Remediation and Redevelopment Division, all right? The water wells are under the Water Resources Division, a different group of people within Eagle. And I'm trying to get Remediation and Redevelopment Division interested in the mobile home park well because of exacerbation of contamination. Because then they can do something to say, hey, you can't increase the flow rate until you do a pumping test or give us the data. So, but that's, what's that?
Then the paving and the runoff.
Well, that would be a separate issue than the water, yeah. You have to, each issue is, you know, different, and that's the problem. There are so many issues and different agencies involved here. You know, you've got Eagle doing and then even within Eagle, you have remediation and redevelopment. You got Water Resources Division. Then you add in townships, and you have a mobile home park you've got Lara involved. You know, and it's just a very complex situation. It's not easy to solve. So.
Thank you, Mike.